And joining me now is Tom Mulcair, CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Tom, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Renee.
So it doesn't look like the NDP and Bloc are in much discussion about toppling Trudeau at this point. Why is the NDP seemingly not too eager to bring down the government?
Well, because they have a number of things that they've negotiated with the Liberals as part of the pact before Mr. Singh tore it up that they want to see come into law. There's parts of the pharmacare that should be adopted anytime soon in the Senate, certainly before Christmas. And then there's a second phase of the dental care plan. These are things that the NDP wants to take into the next election. And Peter Julian made an interesting statement on Friday, looking at the absolute chaos that the Conservatives have decided to impose on the House of Commons because they're all upset about a program that the Liberals had put in place to provide millions and millions of dollars for new green technologies. It turned into a typical government boondoggle with the money going out to very sketchy projects. And the Conservatives wanted all of the documents, as had been requested by the House back in June, to go to the RCMP. And the Speaker said, well, they were pretty well right in that. It was a question of privilege. But this is the type of inside the park baseball where the average Canadian just turns off. They don't pay any attention to this stuff. The Conservatives are convinced that they've got a real head of steam going and somehow the government's going to topple. And what Julian reminded the Conservatives of on Friday, Renee, was, hey, your behavior is one of the reasons that we will not be voting with you to take down the Liberal government. So they have a certain game plan of their own. They don't have a lot of money to fight a general election right now. And it requires all three opposition parties. Put another way, Renee, either the Bloc or the NDP have enough votes to keep the Liberals in power. And Peter Julian, very experienced House leader, very good strategist, just simply warning everybody, whether it's the Bloc or the Conservatives, don't count on us to continue this chaos. Canadians deserve a certain amount of stability. We're a prosperous, a peaceful country, and in the world today, that's a rarity. And no, we're not going to play this type of game that you're playing in Parliament, and we're not about to topple the government, despite the fact that they're no longer in the deal with the Liberals.
Now, Blanchet seems to be standing firm on that October 29th deadline. What's your read on the Bloc's demands?
It's huffing and puffing and threatening to blow the House down, but he hasn't got the ability to do it. But I will say this about the Bloc's approach. It was clever, very clever politically, because, Renee, there were essentially two things in there. One that costs nothing, which is essentially a promise to hold on to Canada's supply management system. So this is a very good system we have in Canada that protects our agricultural producers in several areas. Poultry, eggs, and dairy first among them. It essentially gives a fair price to the producers. It avoids having massive companies take over everything because there is a guaranteed price and they're able to earn a decent livelihood compared to the south, to south of the border in the United States. It's very hard to do the type of farming that we have here. So it's a good system, and they simply want the government to say in any future trade deal, we'll hold on to it. That part's easy. And it costs nothing. The one that does cost a lot of money, $16 billion to be exact, would be to include 65 to 74-year-olds in the top up to their old age security that now exists for 75 and over. Now, Trudeau is resisting that. He refused to give the royal assent that would be required to move this forward because opposition parties are not allowed to spend public money outside of the budget. So they would have required government help. And Trudeau has so far said no. But where it's clever, Renee, and it's really deviously clever on the part of the Bloc, is that Trudeau is now being forced to vote against one of the few demographics, one of the few age groups that are on his side. He has lost the 18 to 35-year-olds to the Conservatives, period. And Trudeau knows that. He tried to change that in his last budget, didn't convince anyone. He's still dropping in the polls. One of the last groups of voters that are diehard Liberals, or mostly, are older Canadians. And so where it's clever on the part of the Bloc is they're forcing the Liberals to vote against one of their very, prime voting groups, which is seniors. So I think that Trudeau hasn't quite figured out how to deal with this stuff yet, and that's another reason that the Liberals continue to be in free fall in the polls. The most recent Nanos has them actually behind the NDP for the first time since the 2015 election.
Yes, that is correct. Tom, we will have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we thank you very much, though, for being here with us today. Appreciate it.
All the best, Renee. Take care.
You as well. That's Tom Mulcair, our CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader.